Chris Lee, Blake Lovell, and Max Barr of Southeastern 14 back together after an illness kept me out last week. Excited to be back doing SEC basketball talk again. Today we're doing power rankings. Reminder, these are presented by our friends at BetOnline. All the major sports are in action this week with the college football playoff ready to kick off. BetOnline is your number one destination for all your sports wagering info, including news for pro football, the NBA, upcoming fights, and the NHL this season. Head to the website today to get in the action and see all the updated odds for the week. Remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that is BLEAV, to get your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. Power rankings, they always start at the bottom. And we got Vanderbilt at the bottom again. 302, I think, in the net. Max, Blake, I don't know what else to say here.
Yeah, it's not pretty right now. I mean, there's no way to beat around the bush here. Biggest difference from last year's team, in my opinion, is the loss of the rim protection. Last year, where you boasted a top 50 block rate, this year it's down at bottom 30 in the nation. Just not to turn anything away in the paint, and that's just kind of making everything else fall apart on the perimeter as well. And they, started out slow with a few injuries and just have not found their footing. So not much to say, but until they figure out that paint defense, I mean, teams are just going to get whatever they want like they have been so far.
Yeah, don't have a lot to add. I mean, their last 4 losses have been by 13 or more points. 3 of them are against teams that are 70 or lower in KenPom. So, yeah, it's been a struggle to this point, but we'll see if they can do what they did last season and make a magical run in SEC play, because that's the only way to turn this thing around right now. So
then comes a pretty sizable gap between Vanderbilt and number 13 LSU. In KenPom, the adjusted efficiency, LSU is about 10 points better than Vanderbilt per 100 possessions right now.
I realized that they had a better half against Texas. What was it? The second half looked better. But
second half.
There's just the consistency's not there. And we can, say this, but guess what? Jordan Wright had 33 points, right, in that game. I mean, if Jordan Wright doesn't just go off, they get beat by, 25 or more? So that's what I'm saying. I'm saying this because I know LSU fans are frustrated. And I think there's reason to be frustrated just because I'm not sure exactly where they wind up, other than right here, kind of sandwiched with Vanderbilt at 13-14. So,
yeah, I don't think there's too much of a difference either. And where Vanderbilt has not been able to protect the rim, LSU has not been able to defend the 3-point line. I mean, like I'm talking like bottom of the country. They give up 41% of their points from the 3-point line. That's third worst in the country. Like, just teams are, and they're ranked 313th in 3-point percentage defense. So teams are just launching and cashing everything. So the perimeter defense on this team is just anemic right now. I mean, they're ranking like horribly. But if there's any positive, you're looking forward. They do have Jalen Cook back, so you saw some sparks, some flashes of what he can bring, and you do have some offensive stuff. You got some guys. You see what Jordan Wright can do. Will Baker is kind of slowing down, but he's had some big games. Reed has had some big rebounding games. So, like, there's pieces there. It just hasn't come together yet. And it's going to have to come together pretty quick because first road game is at Texas A&M, and it ain't easy to play there.
Well, that's what I was going to add is the problem with power rankings, or at least how we're trying to do them. You have to rank the team what you've seen to this point. Now, the issue is like getting Jalen Cook back, getting Brandon Murray back at Ole Miss, getting Tolu Smith back, which he's a different scenario. But like, we can only rank what we've seen to this point, right?
Right.
So, yes, like I am knocking LSU for what we've seen to this point. But the fact is that they have Cook back now. There is the potential to move that forward. It's just, again, I don't know how I change that just based on, I know he played 32 minutes, scored 13 points. He's going to be really good for him, but I don't know about the rest of the pieces that just haven't come together yet. So maybe it is a huge difference, and maybe they wind up getting out of the bottom 4, but just think right now, I'm not sure. Again, this is how we have to rank them, and this is how I've seen at this point. I just don't know if there's been that huge a gap, even though Vanderbilt has really struggled considerably.
Strength of schedule for Vanderbilt and Ken Palm 291, LSU 240. Vanderbilt at 4-6, the only team in the league with a losing record. LSU at 6-5. The only team I think in the league that is within one game of 500 otherwise. Yeah, looking at this now, that is correct. So moving on.
They play each other on January 9th, by the way. So we can have this
settle
discussion.
it once and for all.
Here we go.
We will. LSU beats them by 40 in Baton Rouge, and we'll edit out everything I said.
Blake is the compiler of these power rankings. I don't think we had a lot of debate on Georgia at 12, did we?
No, everyone had Georgia at 12. No, I take that back. Max, I think, had them higher, one spot higher.
I think I had him at 11.
State bias, Max.
Yeah.
So he can talk about them because, I mean, he's right, though. We had this debate before it wasn't a debate. It was just a declarative statement. They've won 5 in a row. It's hard to knock a team for that, but again, I can say the same thing. I'm not knocking Steve Forbes there at Wake Forest. I think he's a fantastic coach. But like outside of beating Wake Forest, what has Georgia done this season? Like it's just, yeah, the great comeback at Florida State, but again, this isn't a vintage Florida State team who's now lost 4 in a row. Yeah, I mean, it's power ranking. It's just if you take all these teams, you put them on neutral court, where do they fit in the mix? I could see them at 11. I could see them at 12. Ultimately, they wind up at 12 here.
Yeah, won 5 in a row, but haven't really looked good doing it. I mean, just got crushed on the boards by High Point. High Point's a good rebounding team, don't get me wrong, but you let up 16 offensive rebounds to High Point. I mean, you just get bullied, absolutely bullied. High Point had 2 guys with at least 5 offensive rebounds. Georgia didn't have a single guy over 2. So you're getting bullied by High Point. I start to worry what it's going to look like against Tolu Smith, Jimmy Bell Jr., and Keshawn Murphy in the same night. You know what I mean? So you've won 5 in a row, but the physicality in the front court, I was worried about it earlier, and they still haven't figured it out. I mean, I remember that Oregon game 1. You guys remember watching that? It was just the rebounding was unbelievable, and now that was November 6th. Now we're midway through December, and the rebounding is still an issue. So a little bit concerned there, and that's why even though won 5 games in a row, I've got them down here in the bottom.
Missouri at 11. How did you allow this to happen, Blake Lovell?
I didn't allow it to happen. Missouri allowed it to happen. They're not very good right now. And I think we talked about this, Max, in the reaction video we did on Monday. Yeah, I mean, again, the problem is just that defensively they're not very good. Outside of blocking some shots, getting some, they're starting to force turnovers. That's kind of a combination that worked at times last year, as we saw. But the issue is that they're just not elite in really a lot of areas right now. Any area outside of maybe blocking shots and their block percentage. That's about it. Free throw, they're a top 20 free throw shooting team, but that's probably not enough to kind of carry you to being, what you were last season, because they're not elite offensively right now. Although I think they've got a lot of pieces. It's just the defense. I think they've got to figure out how they're going to win some of these games when they struggle to get stops at times. But yeah, I mean, again, I don't going to keep repeating myself, but it's a team that gets a lot of their points from 3, and they're just a different team than they were last year. And I don't think they have the room for error this year that they had last year, because you had Kobe Brown or DeMoy Hodge that just went off at times, and you had the percentages that sort of supported the fact that you could slip up here and there and still be okay. Just not a lot of room for error for this team. And, that's leading to some of these losses, whether it's, the Jackson State loss, I think a disappointing loss to Seton Hall. But yeah, they've got some things they've still got to figure out. But like a lot of teams, they're a work in progress right now.
Yeah, losing Caleb Grill, I don't want to keep mentioning it, but it's big. It is big. He wasn't, he's not Nick Honor where he has the ball in his hands every single possession, but I mean, he did rank top on the team in defensive rebounding. It's a senior who had played in Iowa State's tough defensive system. So, he's a gamer. He knows how to grind. And now you lose him, and you're a little bit thinner in the backcourt where you were already thin in the front court. So it's just like, yeah, that's a big blow. And Blake mentioned it with there's no room for error now. And when you lose a piece, now that tightens up even more. And I mean, you play a good Kansas team tight, you only lose by 9. You play a decent Big East team, Seton Hall probably finished middle of the pack in the Big East. You play them tight, lose by 6. It's like they're not getting blown out, but I would like to see them win that Seton Hall game. And now you got to go play Illinois, who's going to be pissed off after dropping a game. So it's like, man, you're gonna have to change some things quick, because the schedule's not getting any easier. You get Illinois, you get one bye game, and then it's right in the SEC play. It's like, all right, we're here now. Results got to start. They got to start coming.
Number 10. What in the world do we do with Arkansas? I mean, really one good night of basketball so far. Maybe that's a little hard, but they beat Duke a couple of weeks ago. Feels like things are finally getting back on track. Nice win over Furman. A loss to Oklahoma a couple of weeks ago, and then nearly losing to my alma mater, Lipscomb, on Saturday. What is going on with this team, Max?
I don't have a ton to add, because Musselman doesn't even know, right? When coach comes out and says, we don't know who we are right now, I mean, how am I supposed to know who they are? You know what I mean? So, I mean, hey, they've got chemistry issues. They've got identity issues right now. If you filter out Bart Torvik's number the past month or so, Al Ellis and Devo Davis both still have negative plus minuses. So it's just, they haven't been able to figure out the maybe the 7-8 guy rotation that's going to really click yet. And they're running out of time a little bit here, because like we keep saying with these bottom teams, I mean, the schedule is not going to get any easier. They've got Wilmington. I know Blake's going to bring up his Wilmington. So yeah, I mean, Arkansas's got to figure it out pretty quick here, because the beginning of their SEC schedules is not too friendly.
Yeah, I mean, they got to figure out the guard play. They can't turn the ball over as much. They got a lot of guards. They just got to figure out which combination works the best. And, Arkansas fans can weigh in on what they think in the comments of which combination of guards they think should be out there. But yeah, until the guard play gets better, they're going to struggle. They got a lot of issues right now, but hey, again, I always say it. It's just, every team's a different team, like Musk said, and you just don't ever know how long it's going to take the chemistry to come together on certain teams, or if it ever comes together at all. We don't know either way with this team. Maybe it doesn't, and they wind up being, a very disappointing team that doesn't make the NCAA tournament or something. But I tend to think that won't happen. I tend to think they'll figure it out and find the right combination and push the right buttons and get it going at some point. It just, it hadn't gotten there yet. But, don't overlook UNC Wilmington, December 30th. Undefeated against the SEC right now. 1-0. The Seahawks.
Florida, number 9, has won 3 in a row, not super impressively for the most part. But Riley Kugel, I think, is not lived up to our expectations. Blake, I'll let you start on Florida. What's your take on the Gators right now?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to make of Florida. I have no idea. They're another one of those teams that this is where I think you could have started with Arkansas, but, Max and I were talking about this. This is where you have the jumbled mess of teams, probably starting with Arkansas, this group of 4 that we're going to get through to probably number 7. Where I don't know what you do with these teams. I really don't, because you've seen some good with Florida, but you've also seen some things that make you wonder, are they really going to be a team that makes the NCAA tournament? Because, I mean, right now, their best win's Pitt, and that's about it. So, rhymed. I didn't realize that was going to happen, but bravo there. It's just, I don't know, Max, unless you got a better answer than I do. I mean, this is just a team that, still feels like it's also another team that's a work in progress. I think we'll get maybe a better idea of what Florida is. Big game coming up on Tuesday against Michigan, which, again, this is not your typical Michigan team based on, the ones we've seen maybe in recent seasons, but it's a good test for Florida because they need to pick up something here. And I know they've won 3 in a row, but I also know that that has been against Merrimack, Richmond, and East Carolina by 5. So, they're still figuring some things out. Kugel, yeah, he has to play better, and I think he will. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong here, Max. I just don't. It's like they have depth, they have guys they can turn to, but like just overall, I think there's, I don't know, there's something missing with him right now.
Yeah, they just haven't had that full, complete 40-minute performance yet. Where we're like, okay, there's Florida. We thought this is what we thought we would see. Against Baylor and Wake Forest, dropped those 2 games. Didn't have Micah Henlogten. Okay, so you'll only lose by 4 to Baylor without Henlogten. And against East Carolina, I mean, I watched that full game, watched that whole thing, and they were cruising, they were dominating, and then just like some sloppy plays, like when you should be, running a half court set and getting a good shot off, they would just kind of, push it a little bit too quickly and turn it over. And then East Carolina kind of crawls back in the game. And it's like, what are we doing? You guys, look like you should be dominating this team. So I think it's a little bit of a mix of, they didn't have Pullen in the beginning. That Virginia game didn't have Zion Pullen. So in all 3 of their losses, if you want to make an excuse, you can. They haven't had all hands on deck for any of their 3 losses. So if you're looking at glass half full, you can look at it that way. You got a big game here against Michigan tonight. All right, top 50 opponent on KenPom. You got your full squad. Like I'm looking at this game as like, all right, Florida, this is who you're gonna be, for the next few weeks. You got your full squad. You won 3 in a row. What are we looking at here? I think tonight is going to give us the best idea of Florida that we've had all season.
Next up, the South Carolina Gamecocks at 8 would be the surprise team in the league so far. There's one other team I think we can put in that conversation that we'll get to in a minute, that it won't be newsworthy when we get there. But the Gamecocks, 1 loss is to Clemson away. Clemson is 2 points from being unbeaten. Quality wins over Grand Canyon and Virginia Tech, both those away from home. Lamont Paris told us before the season, people are sleeping on my team, and Blake, right now, looks like he's right about that.
Yeah, no, I mean they're 9-1. Again, in the 1 loss, they played well against Clemson, I thought, and had their chances. And yeah, I mean, I think the last couple games make you a little more hesitant. I think maybe backtrack a tiny bit because they, have had their struggles at times against East Carolina and Charleston Southern, which are not elite teams by any means. And so, but again, the thing is, we say that, and there have been a lot of other SEC teams that have lost these kind of games to this point. So, quite a few actually. And so I think it's looking at that and saying, hey, you're 9-1 and you're only lost against Clemson by 5 on the road, and Clemson's a really good team. So, yeah. So, I mean, I think you take that for what it is. And, I still think, is the overall depth something that's, in the top tier of the SEC? No, but I keep saying that group of 4 that I always talk about with this team, I mean, they're still good enough to push them, into that top half of the SEC, I think. And, even though they're number 8 this week in our power rankings, they're a team that I think, again, you look at the rest of their non-conference schedule, it's an interesting game against Winthrop tonight. But beyond that, they should beat Elon, they should beat Florida A&M, and had an SEC play against Mississippi State. So, yeah, feeling good about the Gamecocks right now.
Yeah, that Charleston Southern game was just slow and gross. Only 60 possessions. The thing almost ended in the 50s in possessions. Not a great result, but win is a win. I mean, if this team wins at Clemson, I mean, how high do we have them? You know what I mean? So you can't really knock them for a 5-point loss on the road there a week or 2 ago. But yeah, I mean, I think we're starting to see a little bit of the depth issue with the guards, especially when Michi Johnson and Cooper aren't out there. Production drops off quite a bit. But, you win against, you do your job. They're doing their job right now. They haven't had a result that's like, oh God, here's what we were worried about. That hasn't happened yet. And until that happens, I'm gonna keep ranking South Carolina middle of the pack. They've showed me no reason why to drop them. So here they are.
Number 7, Mississippi State. Number 9 in the country in Ken Pomeroy's adjusted defensive efficiency. Josh Hubbard has carried the way offensively, one of the better players offensively in the league, and probably, I think, undeniably the surprise player of the league to this point. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about the Bulldogs here, Max.
Yeah, everyone's going to say, well, but they lost to Southern. I know. I don't know they lost to Southern. I know. They just had 3 decent results in a row. Okay. The Murray State game was a little bit close, but listen, I'm basing this ranking on the fact that you're getting an All-American back in the next week or 2. Okay. That's where it's at for me. We just saw Kashawn Murphy look 100% for the first time all year too. Had a career night against North Texas. That's a good North Texas program too. So, they know how to play their defense over there. So I'm daydreaming about a front court of Tolu Smith, Jimmy Bell Jr., and Kashawn Murphy together. And once that comes back, man, they are going to just physically dominate. And so I'm excited for it. I'm excited about that for this team. You win 3 in a row and you're getting an All-American back. I like it. Middle of the pack and with some real potential here to move up.
Yeah, I mean, again, they've won 3 in a row. Those couple games were ugly against Georgia Tech and Southern, but talent's there, the defense is there, and you said it best, Max. No one likes to play Mississippi State because since Jans has been there, they just were not a fun team to play against last year. They're not going to be a fun team to play against this year, especially once they get Tolu Smith back. And but you talk about the start to SEC play. I'd have to look at all the schedules, but they are going to have one of the tougher schedules to start SEC play. May have the toughest based on what we talked about so far. They're at South Carolina, home against Tennessee, home against Alabama, at Kentucky, at Florida, home against Auburn. They've got a really tough first half. Now they've got a home game against Vanderbilt sandwiched in there, but their front part of their SEC schedule is pretty brutal based on what we've seen from those teams so far. So something to keep in mind with Mississippi State. They would love to get Tolu Smith back, ready to go for the start of that grind on January the 6th. So,
all right, next up, probably the hardest team to rank for various reasons. Ole Miss at 6. On one hand, Ole Miss is one of 4 unbeatens in the country, guys? I think that's what we're down to, 4.
I think it's 4.
Yeah. So there's that. On the other hand, some of these wins, 1 point over number 336 in Ken Palm, Detroit Mercy, 3 points over number 195 Sam Houston, 1 point over number 160 Temple, 2 points over number 76 UCF. That's not a bad win, but metrics have the Rebels 12 out of the 14 teams in Ken Palm 90th nationally. But hey, you judge teams on how you take care of business. Ole Miss is unbeaten. Again, looking at the teams they've beaten, I don't see any NCAA tournament teams in there, and that's how they end up at 6, Blake.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot to add. I mean, me and Max have talked about it over the past week. It's like every game they play, it's going to be decided within 10 points. Just trust me. Like, it's going to be a 10-point or less type game. Maybe they change that against Troy and win by more than 10, but Ken Palm has it projected as a 10-point game. Yeah, it's just every game they play is kind of close, but the fact is they've won all of them, and not every other SEC team no one else has done that. They've lost games they shouldn't and all that, but Ole Miss hasn't. They've beaten everybody, whether it's by a point, no one cares. They've beaten every team on their schedule. So you got to reward them for that. I don't care what the computers say. I don't care about any of that. They've beaten everybody on their schedule. No other SEC team has done it. Sure, theoretically, should we rank them at 1? I don't know. If you want to do that, you can, I suppose, but we're not going to do that. But you got to kind of meet in the middle somewhere on that. And the fact is, they've beaten everybody on their schedule, and they get Brandon Murray in the mix now, and they've got their full squad ready to go. And I think they're not really going anywhere, in my opinion. Sure, they're going to lose a game at some point. They're not going to go undefeated, but I still think they're going to be okay. I don't think this is just a luck thing, like some people have been saying. I think this is they're a pretty good team that's still got a lot to figure out, and a long way to go to be an elite team, but 10-0, it's all that matters.
People love talking bad about this Ole Miss team because of their Ken Palm rating. People love it. People love doing it. And I just sit back and I laugh. Because if you've watched every second of every minute of every game that Ole Miss has played like I have, you would know that those first 4 or 5-ish games were like practices to this Ole Miss team. I mean, just tossing guys out there left and right, different lineups, just trying to see what sticks, see who the team is. No Musa Cisse, no Brandon Murray. I mean, I'm not even looking at those games, to be honest. I'm looking about NC State and down when Musa Cisse comes back and when things start clicking in the backcourt minutes start evening out, and you're seeing less of Rob Coward and less of Austin Nunez, more TJ Caldwell. If you watch this team, you know how good they've gotten. And Troy Southern Miss Bryant, I'm not gonna jinx it, but could very well have a 0 in the loss column here entering SEC play. And hey, not many teams in the country are going to be able to go into conference play undefeated. So, yep, the Rebs move on. I do want to note I had them 4th, so I did have them. I was the high man. Just want to let that be known on the record.
Of course. Let me give you a scenario here, okay? Since you just jinxed it, I'm gonna jinx this thing to no end. So, if they beat Troy, they beat Southern Miss, they beat Bryant, they're 13-0. Let's say they go get a stunning win at Tennessee on January the 6th. All right. 14-0, home against Florida, winnable. Home against Vanderbilt, winnable. At LSU, winnable. 17-0, the Ole Miss Rebels. Mark it down right now. Don't deny it. What's Ken Palm going to have him rated then? 84th?
Yeah, Ken Palm will move him back.
The net will have him at 843. So, all you computers.
Okay, here's
watch
what
the
I want
games,
to know.
computers. Watch the games.
Watch
all right?
them.
Watch the games, computers.
Let's just say it goes off like you have posited here. Well, what's their ranking in the AP poll at that point?
Well, they're 17-0. They're going to be a top 10 team. They might be.
Top
Well, yeah.
10, yeah.
How high
Gotta
in the
be.
top 10?
I don't depends on everybody else.
Fair enough.
So we'll see. 17-0. You heard it here first.
Number 5, the
If
Texas
they lose a
A&M
game,
Aggies.
don't blame us.
Right, who are 7-4. Ken Palm has got A&M schedule 8th in the country, other than Purdue, and I guess maybe Kansas. I'm trying to figure out who's got a tougher schedule. Tennessee would be in there too, but I mean, my goodness, these guys have played all comers so far. Have dropped their last 2 to Memphis and Houston. Look, four losses have been to FAU, Virginia, Memphis, Houston, all surefire NCAA tournament teams. If the tournament were picked today, good wins over Ohio State and Iowa State, both away from home. Yeah, the wins have not fallen like Buzz Williams is wanted. This is a good team. Wade Taylor nearly carried the Aggies to a win over Houston by himself. If you guys didn't see his final few minutes, he was just unbelievable in that one. I like this team as the preseason favorite in the SEC. Am I a little disappointed in what the Aggies have done so far? Yeah. Is it explainable? Also, yes. I think this is still a really good basketball team that's headed towards a berth in March, Blake.
Yeah, they'll get to the NCAA tournament. It just, the Tyrese Bradford situation. I mean, it definitely limits their upside, I think, overall. And people can say, well, they only lost to Houston 70-66 without him. Let's not get into that nonsense. It's just they're a much better team with him. I mean, it's long term they're a better team when Tyrese Bradford's on the floor because for all the reasons we mentioned, Max, over the past couple of weeks, it's been, it's just he gives you another guy that can handle the ball. And yes, Wade Taylor went off. We get that. He can go off any game, but you don't want to put the pressure on him every single game to have to do that. And the fact is, if he doesn't do that in this game, what happens? They probably get beat 20, because no one else really contributed significantly. Now it's Houston, and that's understandable because that's what Houston does. They just grind you into submission. But this is where I think, the whole Radford situation is obviously one we're going to monitor because it would significantly limit their upside if he's out for a long period of time. Because the start of SEC play for them, they host LSU at home. They should win that one, and they got a 3-game stretch at Auburn, home against Kentucky, at Arkansas, which is not ideal. I think those 3 games against those 3 teams, if you're down your second best player. So, yeah, we'll see. But again, I'm still pretty optimistic about this A&M team. So,
yeah, I think you nailed it, Blake. I do not have too much to add over that analysis. What I will say, though, is, guys, I mean, let's rewind preseason, right? Okay, rewind preseason. A lot of people had them. Chris, you had them top of the conference. Right now, they're at 5. If you took your first place vote, but we tell you, okay, but they're not going to have Julius Marble and they're not going to have Tyrese Radford, it would be like, oh well, maybe I'll bump them back a few spots, maybe at like 4 or 5. And here they are. This is kind of right where I would expect them to be without those two guys. They got a few good wins, have dropped a few close ones. They still look like a good basketball team. I mean, kind of right on par with where I think they would end up without those two guys. I think they have a decent start to SEC play. They get LSU first, then they're going to have a grinder at Auburn, but then they get Kentucky at home and a chance to get a huge win. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of right on par with where I thought they would be.
All right. At number 1 in Ken Pomeroy's adjusted offensive efficiency is Alabama, which is also at number 104 in defense. And on balance, that lands the Crimson Tide at number 4 in our power rankings. Mark Sears is having an amazing season, but it's the defensive struggles, I think, that continue to be the narrative, fairly or unfairly, that sort of defines this team, which has now lost its last 2, albeit no shame in losing to Purdue and Creighton, Max.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add about Alabama, because I don't want to keep harping on what we have all season long, but it's positive that in the result in these past 2, yes, you would like to come away with a win before having to play Arizona, but 3 points to Creighton, 6 points to Purdue. You're right there the whole game. Leading Purdue for most of the game. They're going to be they're number 1 in the country right now. So I mean, like, is there a game that this team's not going to be in? I mean, you put them on a neutral court against anyone, they're never going to be a double-digit underdog. Never, So is the offense going to go anywhere? Are they going to keep that insane efficiency? I don't know. Are they going to drop like out of the top 5? I don't think so. I think there's a top 5 offense in the country whole season. So, I mean, they've got a whole year to get the defense right. I mean, you've seen Muhammad Wagi, flashes when he can defend without fouling and stay on the court. You're seeing flashes. Nick Pringle had a good game against Creighton. You're seeing flashes. So I think it's a work in progress. I kind of trusted Nate Oates to get this defense inside that top 100 efficiency, and I don't think the offense goes anywhere. I'm pretty optimistic on this Alabama team right now. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the offense is going anywhere. I think they're going to run some SEC teams out of the gym this season because there's some bad offensive SEC teams, and maybe not bad, but average offensive teams in the SEC. And even if Alabama gives up some points to them, I think they will just go on runs that, kind of like we saw, what was it, the Purdue game? They scored 30 in the first 10 minutes or whatever. And it's just what they're going to do. I don't think the offense is going anywhere. Will they wind up being the number 1 team offensively in the country? I don't know. But like Max said, they're going to be in the top 5 unless people get injured. Like, that's just the way it's going to work. Like, I just think they're too good on that side of the floor, and they're going to win games. Like I said, they're going to blow some teams out in SEC play. They're also probably going to win some games 95-94. I'm all for it. So just, give me the entertainment value of the Crimson Tide with those games. But they're also going to lose some games they shouldn't, because they're going to go out and another team's going to hit 8 threes in the first 15 minutes of the game. And, all of a sudden that Alabama's going to make a run. It's going to be a close game. But this is what they are right now. And like we talked about, I think, Max, and the reaction we did on the Creighton game, I mean, it's just, think about it. They lost by 3 at Creighton. They really hit 4 threes. I mean, they're always going to have a chance. Like, they're always going to be right there in the game. This is one of those teams. I think some people mentioned this on Twitter. Alabama may wind up being a 7-8 seed. I'm the number 1 seed. If I'm the number, 3, whatever, like, no way, no thanks. Like, because they're a team. It's 50-50, right? I mean, it's a 50-50 chance. They could come out and just blow you out of the gym because of how hot they get offensively. But there's also a chance you come out and you hit your first 14 baskets and you're up, 48-20 on them at halftime. And of course, I'm, exaggerating a bit, but they're just not a team I think anybody's going to want to play this season the rest of the way. No one wants to play Alabama. They may salivate over the idea of, hey, they really struggle defensively. Great. But we don't want to play defense either. And if we don't, they're going to score 100 on us. So I don't know. I mean, it's just Alabama's 6-4, but in all honesty, like I still think there's a good chance they could win the SEC. Like I really think that, and it's just because again that they're so good on one side of the floor, and that's where it's not the same as Missouri last year. But what do we say last year with Missouri? It's like, you know, you have some clear deficiencies in certain areas, but if you're just elite in a lot of other areas or very important areas, that can be the differentiator that gets you to 25 wins, like got Missouri to last year. Um, Alabama is so elite offensively in so many different areas that it can be what still gets them to 25 plus wins, perhaps. Um, it's a hard thing to do maybe at this point, but again, I still think they're pretty good. So
At number 3, Auburn, another case where the analytics tell one story and the resume might tell another. On one hand, Auburn up to number 8 in Ken Pomeroy's adjusted efficiency ratings. But you look at the resume, not a lot there. Losses to Baylor on a neutral floor, at Appalachian State in the biggest game in Boone and who knows how long. And you look at the wins, beating Indiana on a neutral court. In fact, clobbered Indiana. Don't know what that means at this point. Nice wins over Virginia Tech, St. Bonaventure. Are they NCAA tournament teams? Probably not. And then a pounding of Southern Cal this past weekend. But Southern Cal 5-5. I know Bronny James is back. Is that an NCAA tournament team? I don't know. It's been a program that is sort of perpetually underwhelmed, in my opinion. So I don't know what to make of Auburn at this point. Well, I say that. I generally trust Bruce Pearl. I think he's got a good ball team, but the resume, and God knows Auburn will get a chance to build its resume in the next 3 months. But an interesting team right now, Blake.
Blake and Max versus the computers, part 2. Because if you watch the games, it's clear that Auburn is getting much better, and they're getting better offensively. You're starting to see them find a rhythm. And I think that was the danger early in the season, was not just offensively, it was the defense, right? We said that a lot early in the season. First couple games, second half defense, Bruce Pearl mentioned that. They've gotten way better on that side of the floor. But the offense, if you take out the Appalachian State game, which again, everybody's going to focus on this. Like, I get it. Like, we love just to zone in on the one game that is the complete outlier in a 10-game sample size at this point. But it's the outlier. Like, I think there's a lot of SEC teams that would have lost that game. I think it was way more about Appalachian State and the environment and the setup than it was about Auburn. And, if you look at teams and how they've played to this point, Auburn has dominated. Every game it's won, pretty much, it has just been domination. And I think, again, there is something to that. They've not played the toughest schedule, but that's okay because they're not just letting some of these teams hang around. They are going out and just putting the hammer down on some of these teams. And that's what you want to see if you're Auburn. And you're starting to get more confidence from guys who are making shots from outside. We said it. Reaction video. Sure, they're not going to make 14 every game like they did against Indiana, but you will absolutely, for Bruce Pearl, take 8 of 21 from 3 for 38%. That will win you games this season. If you just get that kind of efficiency, you're not shooting 40 times from 3, you're making 8 of 21. That is great. And if they can get that from Holloway, Denver Jones, all those guys, we saw the balance. I think that's the thing, is there's a lot of different guys that are stepping up in key areas right now for Auburn. So you can give me the resume stuff all you want, in terms of like what we think they are as compared to everybody else, their non-conference schedule, all that. But I think if you just watch them play, I think they found the confidence, in my opinion, Max. And I just think that they're starting to hit their groove at the right time here as we get ready to start conference play.
A complete team here, Auburn. One that has not been struck by the injury bug at all. Complete team, have had their full cavalry every game, and it showed with the chemistry and the assist rate and just how little this offense is turning the ball over, how clean their offense is running. Just against USC, it was just like Auburn, easy look, USC contested. Auburn, easy, and then it was just like their offense is just running like it's March. It's just clean right now. I'm really liking what I'm seeing on the offensive end. The only thing on this Auburn team that's going to come back to bite them a little bit, and you saw it happen a little bit in the Appalachian State game, saw it happen a little bit in Baylor, is this team's defensive free throw rate. They put teams on the line. They rank bottom 60 in the nation in free throw rate defensively. So I'm looking right down here at the schedule. First SEC game in Bud Walton at Arkansas. Not going to get a friendly whistle, and for a team that puts opponents on the free throw line a lot, I think in SEC play on the road, this team might run into a little bit of an issue with that. But I do want to say real quickly, remember a few weeks ago when everyone was talking about Reed Shepherd's plus minus and how it was just crazy numbers on how productive Reed Shepherd was. Past 4 weeks, all right, so past month of basketball, Reed Shepherd plus minus 11.9. Jalen Williams of Auburn, 11.9, tied for the lead in the SEC. So you're seeing some of the ancillary pieces around Janai Broome start to really produce. And yeah, I mean, everything's just kind of coming together. This team looks like they're just looks like the chemistry's clicking right now.
Number 2, Tennessee. The Vols have emerged from that brutal Thanksgiving stretch where they lost 3 games in a row to 3 powerhouses. Tennessee has had nice back-to-back weekends, beating Illinois and NC State. Vols kind of continue to remain who they are, and a team that based on the resume and the schedule, I think is very much on track for a top 4 seed in March, Blake.
Well, that's pretty anticlimactic there, Chris. Get into these top 2 teams, and everybody's trying to figure out who we're going to rank 1 and 2. And you're just like, okay, number 2 is Tennessee. Come on, man. We got to get a little drama, add a little drama to the mix here. Because guess what? Last week, I mean, we're talking about this debate between Tennessee and Kentucky. Chris is out here just dropping. All right, number 2 is the Vols. So guess what? Kentucky's number 1. Thanks, everyone.
I'm working my way back into the rotation here, Blake.
I know you're back in the middle part of the relief rotation here right now, but yeah. So there you go, everyone. Tennessee's number 2, which means Kentucky's not going to be number 1. We look, the 1 vote separated these two. Like in our point system, our composite staff ratings, only 1 vote separated Kentucky and Tennessee. Kentucky wound up getting the nod, which I'm sure will surprise no one in terms of they beat North Carolina. That gave them probably the nod over Tennessee. So I think it's fine to group these 2 teams together, Max, because I don't think there's a lot that separates these 2 right now. If you put them on a neutral floor, for all the Vegas handicappers out there and people in the comments, my guess is no one's more than a 1.5 point favorite in a game between these 2. I just think it's take your pick, whether that's Tennessee or whether it's Kentucky. But yeah, I just, I think we talked about Auburn, we talked about Alabama, A&M and so forth. I still look at this and I just look at these 2 teams and think these are the 2 most complete teams that have the best chance to win the national championship. And I think they both can do it, in the right scenario. And I just think with Tennessee, as we said, and I think we said this, Max, in the NC State reaction, if you're winning a game like that where you score 79 points and Dalton Connect has 2, it just shows you what Tennessee has at its disposal with that trio of James, Ziegler, and Vescovy, and then all the other quote unquote role players that really have, I think, expanded beyond that at this point. These are guys that take the rest of the group, whether it's Adu, Meshack, Waka, Gainey, so forth. It just feels like Tennessee is a complete team. And I know everybody can say, well, they give up 60-something and a half at North Carolina and all that. And sure they did. But it's college basketball. You play 30-something games, you're going to have strange things that happen. It's going to happen. That's something where if you played that game 99 times out of 100, my bet is Tennessee's not giving up 61 points in the half. So it's one of those things where I don't think we should knock Tennessee. And that's why we kept them, high even after that 3-game losing streak. And all they've done since then is beat Illinois, beat NC State, and feel like they're really starting to find a groove. And then with Kentucky, Max, I mean, what do we say after the North Carolina game? It's just, Aaron Bradshaw has made a big difference, but you said it. I mean, these dudes are just fearless. They don't back down from anything. Yes, they've got one of those head-scratching results that a lot of other SEC teams have with the Wilmington game, but that's the outlier. Kentucky at its best is one of the best teams in the country. And, I think these are 1A and 1B to me in the power rankings this week.
I'm glad you said that because I was going to say, can we group these guys together? AP poll, as much as I hate you, thank you for ranking Ole Miss, but also they have Kentucky, Tennessee, 8-9. I mean, how do you separate these two teams? You know what I mean? So I think they're in a pack of their own right here, and I love the result against NC State. I love it because if you didn't hear the news, Zakai Ziegler's back. He's back. Okay, playing like he always does. And when you can, and that's what's the knock on Tennessee guys, right? Offense, of course, right? When your best offensive player has his worst game and you still win and almost cover, basically, man, that is just very. I'm walking away from that feeling real good. As for Kentucky, I love how much people are talking about Wilmington. I love it. I love how much because it's just like, do you not realize they didn't have Aaron Bradshaw and DJ Wagner? Like two starters, two people that had a huge impact on their win against North Carolina. DJ Wagner with 14 points, 5 assists. Bradshaw wins his matchup against Baycott. Like massive pieces that they didn't have for that game, and people are just like, "Oh, they lost to Wilmington." Okay, you got to mention that. So yeah, 1A, 1B here, two great teams that I don't think are going to be going anywhere anytime soon. I think they're going to be stuck here at the top for a long time now.
Gentlemen, any parting thoughts on the power rankings? Is it fair to say we had a little bit of a gap between Tennessee and Kentucky and the rest of the league, and maybe Auburn, Alabama, A&M, Ole Miss, maybe in that next group, and then I guess Ole Miss, South Carolina. I don't know what you do with the bottom half, but how would you handicap, say, the top half? Is there a little bit of 1 and 2 at the top, and then a little of a break to the next 4, Max?
I would say just because Auburn hasn't had that marquee win yet, they haven't.
Yeah.
USC's their best win right now. There's some separation. I think it's a clear Kentucky, Tennessee running the show right now. I think it's clear. What do you think, Blake?
Well, listen, if you ask the net rankings, if you ask ESPN's BPI, all these other things, the Kentucky Wildcats are the 5th best team in the SEC. And to that, I say, watch the games, computers. Yeah. Watch the games because, sorry, we're having our fun here. Ken Palm, we love you.
Blake hates computers. I mean, he hates those things with a passion, Max.
If it was up to me, we would be doing this live with no technology.
He's the Unabomber of Southeastern 14 is what
the
he
Morse
is.
code. We would be sending written mail with stamps giving you our power rankings each week. You'd have to sign up for our mailer for us to send you our power rankings. If it was up to me, but instead we're doing this on video with the technology on YouTube. I don't hate computers. I just think I think there are times where we just lean way too far and we just trust the computers on everything. I trust my eyes to a certain extent. And so that's all I'm saying. I'm just having fun with them. You guys know I do this. Like we did it with the net. We're just having fun here. But yes, I think Tennessee and Kentucky are the 2 best teams in the league. Can any other team behind them challenge them? Yes.
Yes.
But right now, I don't think so. Right now, I think that they would beat every other team out there just based on how those 2 teams are playing. Like I said, if you're asking me, SEC, fast forward to April the 1st, how has the SEC fared in the NCAA tournament? Everybody make their jokes about Rick Barnes all they want. But I'm going to say pick the 2 teams that got the furthest. I may pick Arkansas because, they've done it the last however many years. But it's going to be Tennessee, Kentucky just because of how good they've been to this point. And I think just the upside is there and it's higher than everyone else. But yeah, in terms of the gap, I look, the computers, they do seem to love Auburn. And our love for Auburn has grown here. And boy, the Alabama fans will have fun quoting me and clipping that quote of me saying that I loved Auburn. But still, I think it's just, they are one that is trending way further probably up than maybe we expected a while back. So yeah, you've got an interesting group of teams beyond, really Alabama, Auburn, Texas A&M. Like we said, we think Mississippi State's going to rise back into that mix with Toulouse Smith back on the floor. Florida could get there. Arkansas, can still get there with the talent they have. Ole Miss, like we mentioned, South Carolina, I think those are the two teams that still to be determined. That's why you've got that jumbled mess in the middle right now in terms of our rankings. So, yeah, man, it's a fascinating league as we head into conference play. I don't want to say it's pretty clear who the bottom 4 teams are, but I think we're getting there. And it seems like that always kind of works itself out early in the season most years, and tend to think we're getting close to that already this season. So,
All right,
Yeah.
that has been
All good for
our-
me. All good for me.
sorry about that. That's been our pre-Christmas edition of the SEC Basketball Power Rankings. We'll be back at it again next week. Got previews of games coming up, whether that's bowl games, whether that's basketball games, whatever it is, we're here for you. Thanks for watching. This has been Southeastern 14 presented by BetOnline.